The champagne was still cold. I remember that specifically because I had just picked up a fresh glass from one of the servers, a kid named Marcus who couldn't have been older than 19, and the condensation was still running down my fingers when my sister Deanna took the microphone. It was 7:14 p.m. on September 6, 2019. I know the time because my phone buzzed with a calendar reminder at exactly that moment, something stupid I had set months before, a little note to myself that said, "You're getting married today, idiot." I saw it. I smiled at it. I looked across the room at my husband, this man I had just legally bound myself to 4 hours earlier, and I felt something I can only describe as complete. Like every jagged edge of my life had finally lined up. 30 seconds later, everything ended. Deanna is 4 years older than me. She was 31 that September. We had been close in the way sisters are close when they don't really like each other but have spent enough decades together to mistake familiarity for love. She was my maid of honor because our mother asked me to include her. That sentence probably tells you most of what you need to know. She had asked for the microphone between the best man's toast and dinner service. She told the coordinator it was a sisterly surprise, and the coordinator, a sweet woman named Bev who had done nothing wrong in her life, handed it over. When Deanna stood up, I genuinely smiled. I thought she was going to roast me gently. Tell the story about how I locked us both out of the car in a Walmart parking lot in 2011. Something like that. She was wearing a dark green dress. She had her hair up. She looked composed in a way that I would spend the next several weeks trying to decode. She tapped the microphone once, and the room quieted down the way rooms do when they sense something is about to matter. "I love my sister," she said. "I've loved her whole life. Which is exactly why I can't stand here and let tonight happen without saying something." The air in the room changed. It was subtle, just a slight shift in how people were sitting, a few heads tilting, but I felt it in my stomach before I understood it in my brain. My new husband, Daniel, was at my left. I felt him go still beside me. "Daniel has been seeing someone else," Deanna said. "Her name is Kristen Polly. She lives in the Lakewood Apartments off Route 9. He's been with her since at least January." She said it the way you'd read a weather report. Flatly. Without drama. Which somehow made it infinitely worse. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. 200 people stopped breathing at exactly the same time. My mother made a sound from table 4. My grandmother, who was 83 and had flown in from Tucson, set down her bread roll very carefully, like she was afraid of breaking something. I didn't look at Daniel right away. I looked at Deanna. And she was looking directly at me with an expression I still can't fully name. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't grief. It was something in between, something that looked almost like relief. Like she had been holding something very heavy for a very long time and had just set it down in the middle of my wedding reception. Then I looked at Daniel. He wasn't denying it. He was staring at the tablecloth. His jaw was working like he was trying to locate a sentence somewhere inside himself and failing. His best man, a guy named Pete who I had always liked, was staring at the ceiling. Pete knew. I could see it immediately. Pete had known, and he had stood up 20 minutes earlier and given a toast about loyalty. I put the champagne glass down. I remember making a conscious decision to set it down carefully rather than throw it, and I'm still oddly proud of that. I stood up. I was in a $2,400 dress that I had tried on 6 times. My hair had taken 3 hours that morning. There were flowers on every table that I had personally selected from a catalog in February, sitting in my apartment at midnight, thinking about what kind of life I was building. I walked out of my own reception. I walked through the lobby of the Harborview Event Center, past a wedding party photo display that included a picture of Daniel and me from our engagement shoot in March, past the coat check, and out through the revolving glass doors into the September night. I sat down on a concrete parking divider and I did not cry. I want to be clear about that. I didn't cry. I just sat there and felt the cold champagne glass I was apparently still holding, which I had no memory of picking back up. Deanna came outside 11 minutes later. I know because I watched the time on my phone the entire time she was gone, the same way you watch a clock during something painful. I've known since January, she said. She sat down next to me without asking permission. I saw them together at Fenwick's, the wine bar on 4th. I didn't know who she was at first. I looked her up after. I asked her why she waited. I asked her why 8 months. A full 8 months. She had watched me finalize a venue. She had come with me to 2 dress fittings. She had stood next to me at the rehearsal dinner the night before and hugged me and told me she was so happy for me. I tried to tell you, she said. 3 times. You weren't ready to hear it. I want you to understand something about that sentence. She didn't say she couldn't find the words. She didn't say she was afraid of hurting me. She said I wasn't ready. Like she was the arbiter of my readiness. Like she had looked at me and made a judgment and decided that the correct intervention point was a microphone, in front of 200 people, on the night that was supposed to be the best of my life. I told her to go back inside. She didn't argue. The marriage lasted 6 weeks on paper. Daniel and I went to a hotel that night, separately. He stayed in the room we had booked for our wedding night and I went to my friend Kara's apartment at 9:30 p.m. in my wedding dress and sat on her kitchen floor while she made tea she knew I wouldn't drink. He texted me at 11 p.m. One sentence, "I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say." I didn't respond. I filed the paperwork on October 14th. It was finalized by November. Kristen Pauley turned out to be real. She was 28, she worked in property management, and she later told a mutual acquaintance that she hadn't known about me until the week before the wedding, when Daniel had apparently tried to end things with her. He hadn't tried very hard. She had texted him the morning of our wedding. I found out about those texts 3 weeks after the reception, when Daniel, in what I think was a misguided attempt at full transparency, showed them to me during one of our 2 post-wedding conversations. The texts were mostly her trying to understand what was happening. His responses were short and evasive in a way that told me everything I needed to know about how he handled things that were hard. I've thought a lot about what Deanna actually did that night. I've turned it over in my mind the way you turn a stone in your hand, looking for the clean side. And here's where I've landed, she wasn't protecting me. I don't believe that anymore. If she was protecting me, she had 8 months to do it quietly, privately, in a way that didn't require an audience and a sound system. She chose the audience. She chose the sound system. She chose the exact moment when I was most publicly committed, most visibly invested, most unable to fall apart privately. What she did gave her a story. A role. She became, in the telling of that night, the brave sister who said the hard thing. And I became a footnote in her narrative about courage. 6 weeks after the wedding, I found out from my cousin Bria that Deanna had told people at the reception, in the hours after I walked out, that she had been trying to warn me for months. That she had finally had no choice. That she was just devastated about how it had all gone. She had a whole performance already assembled. She'd had it ready. I don't speak to her anymore. I don't speak to Daniel. The flowers from the reception had a 9-day lifespan. I know because I left one centerpiece on my kitchen table and watched it die. People ask me sometimes which betrayal was worse, the husband or the sister. And I always think about it genuinely before I answer, because I think the question deserves that. Daniel was a coward who took something from me. That is its own wound, and it healed the way those wounds do, slowly, then suddenly, then imperfectly. But Deanna watched me plan a future for 8 months and said nothing, then chose a microphone. She didn't take something from me. She waited until the most visible moment of my life and let the floor fall out underneath me in front of everyone I loved. Some people destroy things because they're broken. Some people destroy things because they've been waiting for permission, and they finally gave it to themselves. I looked beautiful that day. I know I did. And that's the part one refused to let either of them take.